Folks came to me asking if I would get into this race so that we could pursue those goals. Because it's not just about winning, it's about winning so that we can keep good, conservative, common sense policy in the place of the Secretary of State's office here.
I have a special guest today. He is the Republican nominee for Secretary of State, proud husband, proud father, Max Engling. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
It's great to be with you, Caleb. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So, as you know, Kamala Harris infamously turned down every interview except for far left media outlets that agreed to give her multiple choice answers. So, just for you sitting here with me today, I have this for you. It's the Better Than Kamala Award, where I officially certify you are better than Kamala.
Hey, I'll take that. Thank you. Although it's a low standard.
Yes, it's a very low standard, but you exceeded it just
Thank
from
you.
sitting down here.
That's right. Happy to be here. So
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tell me about your campaign. Why did you decide to run for Secretary of State?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm a Christian, husband, father, Hoosier, and I think the reason I'm here is because we need to defend our election integrity and uphold our conservative values that we've built here in the state of Indiana. And I believe that very fully. We have to do both of those things well. And so, folks came to me asking if I would get into this race so that we could pursue those goals. Because it's not just about winning, it's about winning so that we can keep good, conservative, common sense policy in the place of the Secretary of State's office here.
Absolutely. And I've spoken with many people that are worried that our elections here in Indiana might start looking like California or Illinois. I definitely share those concerns, but I'm more worried about what's already happened here in Indiana. As you're probably aware, back in April during the primaries, a court ruled that we have, as you're probably aware, back in April during the primaries, a court ruled that we have to accept student IDs in order to vote, which I just find ridiculous because back when I was at college, every single person there had a valid state ID except for two types of people, people from out of state and people that are foreign exchange students. So I'm just baffled. Why is your opponent so persistent and his party so persistent on making sure that out of state people are able to vote in elections and foreigners are able to vote in the elections via student ID?
Yeah, and I'll take one step back from that too and say, I do share your concern with where Indiana could potentially go.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge thing for folks to consider, that we want conservative policies that uphold the election integrity that we've built here in Indiana. And what we don't want to do is hand it over to folks on the left who do want some of these policies that we've seen in Washington, D.C., in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, where they count for weeks on end to get to the final answer in the election. They're not counting just that night, where they're harvesting ballots and blanketing out absentee ballots. We don't want that here in Indiana. And I think Hoosiers are smart. They know that. That's what they're looking for, somebody that's conservative to put forward good policy. Now, when it comes to IDs specifically, yes, there was the challenge against the law where it had to be a true state ID or a passport, a couple other options, but not a student ID. And thankfully, that was not upheld. And so you are not eligible to just use a student ID here in Indiana now. And I would make sure to continue pressing for policy that ensures that you need a real ID, not something given to you by your university. And, I think the reason that the Democrats are pushing on the other side of that is because if you look at Senator Alyssa Slotkin, she recently said at a big group that if you pass the Save America Act, that Democrats will not win elections anymore. And the Save America Act is must have voter ID, you must be a U.S. citizen, and a handful of other provisions. But what that means, what she's saying, is the quiet part. She's saying the quiet part out loud, that is, if we have secure elections and only citizens are voting and only people that are showing I verify who I am are voting, that they can't win anymore. I think that's why they're pressing for some of these other options, and to me, that's unacceptable.
Oh, absolutely. And excuse me, I'm not quite as informed about every single state election law. I've seen a lot of commentary about if the Save America Act was passed, how it would affect San Francisco, California. Would anything change here in Indiana if it was passed?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it does give me the opportunity to say I really appreciate the work that the State House, the governor, the current Secretary of State have done on the election security side to say, let's put us in a good position where we have confidence in our elections. Now, certainly there are areas that we need to continue improving. There was a report around 6 or 8 months ago that said there were nearly 24 folks that had voted illegally in the state of Indiana. Also, there were around 160 plus folks that were registered to vote illegally. That's a problem. We need to be much more proactive in our approach to ensuring that only eligible citizens are registered to vote. So I do think we have work to do. However, I am proud of the work that has been done. So if the Save America Act were to pass, which I am a huge proponent of, and would continue to ask Congress to pass that legislation, Indiana is actually in a really good spot on that part already. There's not a lot of provisions that would change the day-to-day of voting here in Indiana, which I'm thankful for. But I also think there's a couple things like a private right of action to ensure that it's enforced, things like that aren't currently on the books here in Indiana. But I do appreciate the work that Indiana has done so that voters can feel confident in their elections here in Indiana.
Absolutely. And I've seen some reports going from elections to other places that you would have to work on as Secretary of State. I've seen other reports where truck companies come in, hire illegal drivers, and then when they start getting sued, they just change the LLC. Is that something that the Secretary of State's office can handle?
Yeah.
What's happening there?
You're right. So there's a few things. One, if we take just a step back, there's some issues at the federal level that have to be handled there when it comes to these trucking companies. So what happens is a trucking company files with the Secretary of State's office, files a business there, an LLC, and then they have their drivers that work inside of that operation. Their drivers may or may not have proper CDLs, may or may not be able to speak English, and have other issues where they're racking up violations around what they're hauling, how much, how long, etc. And so if they then are found out and they rack up too many violations, then instead of paying the repercussions, they'll just dissolve that LLC and file an identical LLC again so that they can transfer their drivers over and keep these folks on the road. And so from the Secretary of State's office, we need to close that gap as the front door to make sure that we're not allowing those fraudulent companies to refile. And part of that is just gathering the data. So in the Secretary of State's office, you are the first entity to see that data. You compile it, you determine are there multiple identical LLCs being formed in one household. So an example would be in Greenwood, there were 14 identical LLCs that were formed in one household address. There were over 300 in one small neighborhood, where you know that if there's anomalies like that there's probably issues legally. And so you take that data, you work with the Attorney General's office, with other prosecutors to further investigate and prosecute those folks if they're acting fraudulently. And I will say I'm thankful to the Attorney General for spending a lot of time on this issue and being aggressive with enforcement as much as is possible right now. I'm also thankful to the State House and Governor Braun for the work that they did in the last session to make sure that there's new authority for verifying identities of the folks filing these businesses with the Secretary of State's office and a few other things. And they're also working on some of these issues at the federal level. So Senator Banks, he has put forward the Delilah's Law, which ensures for CDLs go to folks that are here legally, and then also that they have English proficiency. Senator Young has done work on this as well. And then, of course, at the top, the president issued an executive order to say that we have to have English proficiency and a number of other things that Secretary Duffy is working on too from the transportation side. So I'm proud of the fact that Republicans are working on this issue at all levels, but I do think that gap at the Secretary of State's office needs to be closed, and I'm committed to doing that to make sure that we take these deadly truck drivers that are not following the law off of the roads with Hoosiers.
Absolutely. So right before we started recording, we were talking, you're a very busy man, we were talking about everything that you're doing today.
Yep.
You have a lot of campaign commitments. My question for you, on a day where you don't have anything, you're a proud father, proud husband, on a day that you don't have anything, what can we find Max Engling doing?
Great question. So the only time that I don't have anything is on Sunday morning. And by anything, I mean I get to go to church with my family and just listen. And I really appreciate the opportunity just to soak in the Word and go to church and learn from that. I do normally teach a Sunday school at my church that I go to in Noblesville, although during the campaign I've taken a little bit of a leave from that since there's so much going on, and I appreciate that, but I'll get back to it here shortly. And then Sunday afternoon, sometimes we have some campaign events, but we try and hold that time for family. And when we're holding that time, like last Sunday, I took the kids out and we went fishing. They love fishing with me. I very much enjoy fishing as well, and so we got the opportunity just to spend a nice, few hours on an afternoon, spending time together with the kids and my wife, and getting some good time in it at the pond.
So, board games. What's your favorite board game? And do not say Uno.
So it's not Uno. That's a good question. Most of the board games I play are with the kids, and so either board games or card games. There's a game called Rail Raiders that was actually created by a friend of mine. That's an awesome game, and it's one of those strategy games where you're figuring out what you're carrying across the country and how do you map that into taking over your industry, which is very fun. I appreciate strategic games, but I would say most of the games I play are um, uh, sorry, card games with the kids, and just because they want to get out and play with dad. So,
Yeah. I also love strategy board games. My favorite board game is a huge strategy board game. I'm not sure if you heard of it. It's called Candyland.
oh yeah, right. A lot of strategy there.
A lot of strategy.
How does the dice roll?
Yeah. Which card do you pick up
That's
next?
right. That's
Yeah.
right. That's good. I appreciate that. But yeah, it is. Most of the time, we're very focused on what we're doing with the campaign, obviously. But I do think it is really important to make sure that you spend that quality time with the family too. That's the family is where all of this starts. And so I think if I didn't have that support at home with my wife, with the kids, that I wouldn't be able to get out and run in a race like this, or if the voters give me this responsibility in November to then run an office like this. But I'm thankful for that support at home so that we can actually do this.
Absolutely. It all starts at home.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate you sitting down here with me. I enjoyed talking with you.
Same here. Thank you, Caleb. I appreciate it very much.
Thank
and
you.
I'm happy to talk anytime.
Sure. Bye.